So you join us today at Manor Farm Leisure for a bit of finesse pellet waggler fishing on ash pool, hopefully catching some F1s, feeding some 6mm pellets as opposed to, we're going to go nice golden F1. Opposed to the norm where everyone's obsessed with feeding 8mm on a big lake. We're only on a small lake today and catching some nice old F1s like so. So, gear-wise for fishing pellet waggler today. Starting off with a rod, I've got an 11-foot Ethos pellet waggler rod. Nice soft rod, so I'm not going to have any hook balls under the net. Reel-wise, got a 3000 Horizon, teamed up with 020 Horizon Mono. And then waggler setup, couldn't be simpler if I just bring that into shot. Try not to blind myself. So I've got a 6-gram finesse pellet waggler, which you think, oh, that's quite a heavy waggler for a short chuck today. But that is the entire weight of the waggler, not just the brass or the lead material. That's the entire weight, so you're probably looking at closer to a 5 gram or a 4.5 gram of actual loaded material, so you can always go up a size on the wagglers. They cast really well. Then that has got a Matrix waggler attachment there. It's going to stay nice and tight, but you can move it up and down when you're changing your depths. I've set this at 3 foot to start, and then I've got 18 inches of 018 power micron, and then a MXC4 in a size 16, a ready rig with a band on with a 6mm pellet on. Super simple setup. Let's go and try and catch some fish. So we've been fishing for a little while now. I've got one on, nice F1 I think. It's nice because it's not mega. They're not casting out and getting one every single put in. They're making me work for them today. So normally when you pellet waggler fishing, we just unhook that one. Nice golden F1. Just hook him up and move the rod out of the way. Nice chunky golden F1. Yeah, normally when you pellet waggler fishing, it's a case of the more you work and the more you cast and the more you feed, the better the fishing. Whereas it's quite clear to see today that real regular casting isn't going to be the most rewarding bite-wise. So it's a case of feeding a few pellets like you would normally. Say we're fishing with 6mm today, just 4 or 5 pellets in the catapult, and then we're going to just flick that into the feed, just feather that waggler down, and then we'll leave it 10 or 15 seconds, a few more pellets in the pouch, and refeed again. Whereas normally when you pellet waggler fishing, I'd be reeling it back in already and looking to catch some fish on the plot, but it's quite clear today that, there we go, bite there, I was too busy talking. The one it hung there as opposed to coming to the plot, coming to the noise all the time. So with a couple of F1s topping over me waggler there. So we'll just repeat the process. Couple of 6mm in the pouch, ping those out, and then we'll feather that waggler just past that feed. And it's really important to make sure that your waggler's going in nice. It's no good with it crashing in and taking a couple of seconds to rise up. You really want to feather it down and make sure your pellet or your wafters kicking past your waggler. You're not going to get any tangles like that, and it's much more presentable to the fish. I've had a few on a 6mm oiled up pellet, one of the Dynamite tiger nut ones, tiger fish ones, tiger nut, I'm not sure. But I've swapped to a little wafter, Speedy's wafter, and it's just slowing that hook fall down, so we're getting a few more seconds with it falling through the water. Hopefully we'll catch a few more fish, and we'll run through in a little bit more detail a little bit later on like key depths and feeding techniques to try and get you them few extra bite off those crafty F1s or carp that you're fishing for on a pellet waggler. So let's have a little break from the fishing to talk about hook bait in a little bit more depth. So we're not fishing with 8mm pellets today, feeding them into lake. We're fishing with 6mm pellets. We're being a little bit more refined, trying to catch some F1s. We're not on a massive lake where I'm having to ping them to my limit. We're fishing at 20-25 metres. So we've got some 6mm, they are the Swim Stim Amino original pellets, and then hook bait choice. I've just got a selection of pellets. I've got some Robin Reds in there, some Tiger Nut ones, some Woodlands View green pellets as well that I can vary with a few different sizes from like a 7mm up to like a 9mm. They're all supposed to be 8mm, but they're all just a few different sizes and colours. Moving on, I've then got some 6mm, some Woodlands green ones, some Tiger Nut ones again, and some normal Coppins pellets with a variation in size from a 6 to a 7mm. And then finally, when they're being really crafty, I've got a selection of washters and wafters and wowsers. With these, obviously, if I'm using a small hook like I am today, a size 16, we need to be careful that the hook bait isn't going to be floating. So what I do is pick a smaller one out, or if I'm looking for a bigger target hook bait, is then just grab a pair of scissors, a little, let's go for a red one, if we can get one out. A little red wowser, and I can just trim up the side of it just so it's neutrally buoyant, and that hook bait's going to fall really, really slowly. So we're going to craft for one of those crafty F1s and hopefully taking our hook bait. So whilst we play this little feisty F1, not the biggest one in the lake, I think we'll have a look at the importance of fishing at the correct depth when pellet waggler fishing, or any style of fishing. I think it's the smallest F1 in the lake. Little pecker. There we go, still a bite though. So we're fishing at about 3 foot deep, yeah, 3 foot, with a 6 gram finesse waggler. Just slide him into the net. And I'm even going to reuse my little washter that I've trimmed down, so we've got a nice slow falling hook bait on that size 16 hook. Yeah, starting point really, depth wise, 3 foot, generically speaking, is an ideal depth to start. Little trim down, back out, feed a few pellets, got a few in my pouch already, and then I can just lay that over my leg, ready to go. So yeah, back onto depth. We're fishing about 3 foot deep. On memory, I haven't fished this lake for a long time, but I think it's about 8 foot out there. We're fishing about 3 foot deep in, let's say, 8 foot of water. There's the odd one swirling, and that's only just started happening. So if I'm getting indications and missing bites, I'll happily shallow up. But if I'm getting no indications or no bites, I can go deeper and just try and locate the fish. Today it's been noticeable that hanging your bait there for a longer length of time than trying to catch them on the splash has definitely been the way to go. So like normally would have been back in by now and trying to catch one on the splash, but being comfortable and just keeping a tight line in connection to that float is really important, especially when fishing for F1s on a pellet waggler. Gone are the days where every single one will pull your rod round. It's just a little dink on your float and you need to be straight into it. So I've got rod on my lap, hands free, catapult on my lap, good to go. I'm looking at the waggler continuously. Well, I say that, I look at the camera and the float goes under. Typical. So I can go a few pellets in my pouch, looking at my waggler all the time, and then we can feed those few pellets out and look at recasting that waggler out. And there's no need to try and cast in your feed all the time. There can be opportunities during the day when you need to feed your peg, but the fish will be hanging left, right, just past your feed. So don't try and get it down the same hole every time if they're not homing in on that feed. Today it's been a case of just picking those wary ones off just past the feed on the sides, or just hanging it in your peg a little bit. So again, I'm nice and comfortable. I've got that rod tip about 6 inches underwater. I'm hands free, looking at the float, can feed a few pellets there, indication on my float there, and I'm just going to tighten up to that now and just flick that rig so the pellet will come back up in the water. And I missed the bite. So we're just going to take 6 inches of depth off that rig, because we have missed a few bites in quick succession there. So we've got a Pellet Waggler adapter, so it's not going to damage the line in any way, so I just go down 6 inches, and it's really nice that I don't have to have millions of rods set up at different depths. I can just literally slide those down and we're fishing 6 inch shallower in a matter of seconds. So I'm going to place the rod down on my rest, get 6 or so pellets, feed those into the lake, looking at the lake where those pellets are landed, and I'm going to flick that waggler and just feather it down to make sure that pellet or that washter just falls behind the rig itself and falls nice and slowly. Hands free again. I'm not looking where my pellets are on my side tray because I know they're right close to my hand. I've got my catapult over my lap and I'm concentrating on that float continuously. So we can feed a few more pellets and then we can just give it a nice sharp twitch into the feed. And whilst I'm looking at the float continuously, I can get 6 or so pellets where my catapult's rested on my leg, and then I'm ready to go, ready for the next cast. But if I was actually concentrating, I might hit one of these bites. So just the importance of, say, keeping an eye on your float as opposed to everything else that's going on during the day. So repeat the process, feed some pellets, flip the rig out, just past our feed. Nice tight line on the float, and we'll try and catch one this time. We'll try and concentrate on what we're doing. There we go. So we had that nice tight line on that waggler, and I could pick that waggler straight up. So say, whereas if you had a load of slack line, you wouldn't have connected with a fish then. They're so cute, these big old F1s. Again, I don't think it's a big fish, but it's a nice quick bite. It's raced towards me. We're still fishing relatively strong gear, because these F1s, when they come under your net, they can be quite feisty to say the least. They can, you're going to end up banging you up length off more than what a big carp can that just plods round, because these like to race round at 100 mile an hour. Yeah, not the biggest fish in the lake again. Just move my catapult out the way. I don't want to feed him into the lake. Nice golden F1. And we'll hold him up if he's going to behave. Feisty one. More little hands, I can't get round him. Unhook him and we'll slip him into the net. So we're back out fishing again. I fed some pellets, cast my waggler out, and now I can twitch. Oh, I got a bit excited again now. There's definitely a few fish there in my peg now. So if I continue to miss some bites, I can take another 6 inches off. And hook bait wise now, because I am getting a few quicker bites, I've changed back to a pellet that is going to sink. That weren't the greatest cast in the world, Aidan. Will sink that little bit quicker. When it's good fishing, a pellet can generally be better. When you're hanging it in the water a little bit longer, oh, there's a fish there. Hanging it in the water a little bit longer, those washters can be really good, because it's just nice slow fall through the water. But if there's a load of fish there, you can get foul hookers and stuff with them. So you're just changing the hook bait depending on how quick your bites are coming. Yeah, I'm definitely going to take another 6 inches off there. It's not behaving themselves for the camera. So just moving these Pellet Waggler adapters down. No damage to the line whatsoever. And then I'm going to prep myself ready for the next cast. 6 or so pellets. And I've just chucked that a little bit past my feed. And a very angry fish has took that on the cast itself. So it just shows that varying where you're casting can get a real quick bite, if you like. whereas that one was just obviously hanging past where I've been feeding the majority of my pellets. It's not good to hammer that past your feed line continuously, but we were missing a few bites, and you see there was some fish in our peg, and we've just chucked it past our feed and it's gone on the cast instantly. Poetry in motion. And there's an angry F1 doing its best to make us look silly. There we go. An aggressive bite, and it's not a monstrous fish at all. But having your clutch set nice and loose, it just saves any exploded hook lengths under the net. Just unhook that one. Nice golden F1, safely into the net. So, we've got one to finish on. They've been crafty to catch today, these F1s, but it's been enjoyable. Changing depths to keep in contact with the fish, and also changing your feeding pattern. Hanging it a little bit deeper, say 3 foot deep, was good early doors, and fishing like a neutrally buoyant washter. And then when it's got good, as the afternoon's gone on, nice F1, I've managed to shallow up to say like 2 foot deep, and feeding less pellets more often and catching them more like traditionally, if you like, catching them on the splash as opposed to on the hang. Let's see if we can hold that one up. Nice Manor Farm golden F1. So we'll slip him into the net. So I hope we've seen that pellet waggler fishing isn't just about rafting and 8 mils and catching great big carp. A finesse approach with 6 mils, fishing on a bit smaller lake with smaller wagglers, smaller hooks, and catching crafty F1s is a really enjoyable, busy way of fishing. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button.